The night the crying wouldn't stop was the night everything changed. In a glass-walled mansion that overlooked the glowing city, billionaire Adrian Wolfe stood helpless outside his daughter's bedroom, his jaw clenched as the sound of soft, broken sobs seeped through the door. Inside, his twin daughters, 8-year-old Lila and Luna, curled beneath their silk blankets, wide awake once again. It had been like this for months. Since their mother passed away, sleep had become their enemy. Doctors were called. Specialists flown in. Expensive therapists tried everything: medication, routines, white noise machines, but nothing worked. The girls were haunted, not by monsters under the bed, but by the silence left behind by their mother's absence. And no amount of money could fill that emptiness. Adrian, a man who built empires from nothing, found himself defeated by something he couldn't control. Every night, he stood there, listening, feeling like a stranger in his own daughters' lives. He tried reading to them once, but his voice lacked the softness they needed. He tried sitting beside them, but they would just stare at him with tired, distant eyes. He didn't know how to reach them anymore. That same week, a new maid arrived at the mansion. Her name was Ilara. She was quiet, almost invisible, hired through an agency that specialized in domestic help. She wore simple clothes, her posture humble, her eyes carrying a kind of silent exhaustion that no one in that luxurious house noticed, except perhaps the children. Ilara had her own past, one filled with struggles she never spoke about. She had lost more than most people could imagine, yet somehow, she still carried a warmth within her. On her first night, as she finished cleaning the hallway near the girls' room, she paused. The faint sound of crying reached her ears. She hesitated, knowing it wasn't her place to interfere, but something in her heart stirred. She gently knocked. Adrian opened the door, clearly annoyed. "What is it?" he asked, his tone cold. Ilara lowered her gaze. "Sir. I heard the children. May I try something?" Adrian frowned. He had heard this before, from professionals with degrees and polished confidence. What could a maid possibly do? "Just do your job," he replied sharply. But before he could close the door, a small voice called out, "Please, let her come in." It was Luna. Adrian froze. Slowly, he stepped aside. Ilara walked in quietly, her presence calm, almost comforting. She didn't speak at first. She simply sat on the edge of the bed, her movements gentle, as if she understood the fragility of the moment. The girls watched her curiously. Ilara smiled softly and said, "Would you like me to tell you a story?" They nodded. It wasn't the words that made the difference, it was how she said them. Her voice carried warmth, emotion, and a sense of safety that the girls hadn't felt in a long time. She told them a simple story about a lonely star that couldn't shine until it found someone to share its light with. As she spoke, her hand gently brushed Lila's hair, a gesture so natural, so maternal, that it made Adrian's chest tighten. Within minutes, something unbelievable happened. The sobs stopped. The girls' breathing slowed. Their eyes grew heavy. And for the first time in months, they fell asleep. Adrian stood there, stunned. He didn't say a word as Ilara quietly stood up and left the room. That night, he didn't sleep. He sat in his study, replaying what he had seen. It didn't make sense. How could someone so simple succeed where experts had failed? The next night, it happened again. And the night after that. Slowly, a routine formed. Ilara would come in, sit with the girls, tell them stories, hum soft lullabies, and stay until they drifted into peaceful sleep. The mansion, once filled with tension and sleepless nights, began to feel different. Warmer. Lighter days turned into weeks, and the girls began to change. They smiled more. They laughed again. They started calling Ilara Auntie, clinging to her presence as if she were the missing piece in their broken world. Adrian watched from a distance, conflicted. Part of him felt grateful beyond words. Another part felt something he couldn't quite name, guilt, perhaps. One evening, he finally approached her. "Why do they listen to you?" he asked. Ilara paused, then looked at him with gentle eyes. "Because I listen to them," she replied simply. Her answer stayed with him. For the first time, Adrian realized that in his desperate attempts to fix everything, he had forgotten to truly be there for his daughters. He had tried to replace their pain with solutions, instead of understanding it. Ilara hadn't brought expensive tools or complicated methods. She brought something far more powerful: kindness, patience, and genuine care. One night, as Adrian stood by the doorway again, he noticed something different. The girls weren't crying. They weren't even waiting for Alara. They were already asleep, holding each other, peaceful and calm. He stepped inside quietly, his eyes softening. For the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of relief. A sense of hope. When he turned around, he saw Alara standing in the hallway. "They didn't need me tonight," she said with a small smile. Adrian shook his head. "No, they did. Just not in the same way anymore." From that day on, Adrian began to change too. He started spending more time with his daughters, reading to them, talking to them, listening, really listening. And every time he doubted himself, he remembered the lesson Alara had unknowingly taught him, that love isn't about fixing everything, but about being present when it matters most. But Alara didn't stay forever. One morning, she was gone. No goodbye, no explanation. Just a small note left behind: "Take care of them. They don't need me anymore." Adrian searched for her, but she had disappeared as quietly as she had arrived. Yet her impact remained, woven into the hearts of those she had helped heal. Years later, when people asked Adrian Wolf how he managed to balance his empire and his family, he would simply smile and say, "A poor maid once taught me what wealth really means." And in the quiet of the night, when the house was still, and his daughter slept peacefully, he knew that some of the most powerful changes don't come from money, but from the simplest acts of love. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that true wealth lies in kindness and connection, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more powerful and emotional stories that stay with you long after they end.